All right, I want to go ahead and call the Academic and Student Life Committee meeting to order. As with all the agendas, with the full agenda, and we have the luxury and benefit of having some of our student leaders here to speak, and I want to make sure that we have an opportunity to have a robust conversation. So we're going to be dealing with several action items: the renaming of an endowed professorship, the establishment of 3 new endowed professorships, the creation of 2 new degree programs in the School of Education and Human Development. As I said earlier, we'll hear from the chairs of the Honor Committee and the Judiciary Committee and representatives of the School of Data Science. And we'll get an update on work related to the UVA Innovates, the Pan University Entrepreneurship Initiative. And then again, all these topics are topics that we have collected and actually from our meeting in September and brought forward. And we will continue to do that. So as items arise that folks want to talk about or hear about, or if there are follow-up matters, we'll add those to the future agendas. But that's kind of how we're systematically planning the agendas. But I want to add one precursor note before our student leaders speak. And that is, I was perusing a old UVA law journal. The UVA lawyer of the law school puts out a journal. And in 2016, they did an article on the establishment of our modern standards of conduct. And I had not heard this story, I didn't know this, but this modern standards of conduct actually originated after anti-war protest took place in Maury Hall in 1970. And we had this conversation last year about how President Shannon was able to avert certain tensions on grounds when them speaking to the students. But with that, there subsequently was a takeover of Maury Hall. And several hundred students were actually hauled away in a Mayflower moving van, actually, by law enforcement. And there was a question: should the university prosecute? And the board and the university the board and the president actually thought that those students should be disciplined through the judiciary system. And this article describes, and I've actually asked Susan to share this with the rest of the board members, that the student judiciary determined not to prosecute those students through the judicial system. And of course, they were called in to speak with the board. And after that conversation, the board and the student leaders agreed that the current standards of conduct were not appropriate at that time to appropriately prosecute those students under the judiciary system. And then there was collaborative effort that took place to revise those standards of conduct to the ones that we have here today. And I tell that story to highlight that at bottom, this university has always trusted and collaborated with our students. Student self-governance is not simply some mantra that we use that doesn't have meaning. It's real. And we've had this sense of shared governance where we've given real responsibility to students to lead, to make decisions, and to collaborate. And this university is uniquely special because of that. And that's, I believe, our principal obligation as this Board of Visitors is to maintain that uniqueness. And so I'm honored to have the student leaders here to share their experience currently in leading these very important organizations, and we're looking forward to hearing from them. But before that, we're going to have our provost share some comments.
Thanks so much. Before I share comments, a couple of actions, as you mentioned, Mr. Chair. We have one consent agenda item this afternoon, renaming a professorship in the School of Medicine. In June of 2022, the Board of Visitors established the Bicentennial Professorship in Advanced Medical Analytics, funded by Witt and Moorman, to support the work of Mr. Moorman's brother until he retired by that name. He has now retired, and the donors have requested that the professorship be renamed as the Randall and Liza Moorman Bicentennial Professorship in Advanced Medical Analytics. Mr. Chair, I recommend this action for the board's approval.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
We have 5 action items for the board's consideration: 3 to establish new professorships in engineering, arts and sciences, and medicine, and 2 regarding new degree programs. The details are in your books, and I'll move quickly through them, beginning with the professorships. First, the John B. and Ann M. Koch Jefferson Scholars Foundation Distinguished Professorship in Systems and Information Engineering. The second is the Witt and Carol Stevens Jefferson Scholars Foundation Distinguished Professorship in Economics. And the third establishes the Kathie L. Hullfish Professorship in Obstetrics and Gynecology. Mr. Chair, I recommend these 3 resolutions for the board's approval.
We'll take them as a block. Is there a motion? Question?
I have one question, Mr. Chairman. I have no objections with any of them, but I didn't know whether we have any policies or standards for when we create or name new professorships. I didn't see that in the material, so just didn't know if we're supposed to be evaluating against any particular criteria.
We evaluate against the criteria at the moment in which the gift is received, and we review it at that point. And it goes through review both by, if it comes to a school, the appropriate dean, it goes to JJ's office, it goes to my office. So we have the chance at that opportunity, and then the rector also has to approve it. So there's stages of review before the gift is ever accepted, and the name is attached at that point. And that's when we would do any necessary due diligence that we needed to. And then my understanding of this gift is that when the professorship was established, there was clarity at that point. There was an interim name to honor the donor's brother while he was continuing to practice, and the understanding that once he reached the point of retirement, that would change. So I think that we are reflecting prior board action, but that's the way that we do it through those processes of review at each stage before each of us actually agrees to sign off on the agreement. Is that helpful?
Is there any minimum funding requirement or anything like that? I just want to make sure as a board member that I'm considering the necessary things when saying.
Yes, absolutely. So there are minimal funding requirements for an endowed professorship, and I believe Mark with us. I think the base minimum now is $3 million, and that depends on whether the gift qualifies for matching or not, but you still have to get to the minimum $3 million threshold to endowment name. And then we have criteria for the namings of buildings or others, but for a professorship, it's a $3 million base.
But if there were, for any reason, anything that you brought to us that didn't comply with policy, or there were questions about whether it was consistent with something we'd done in the past, you would raise that?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah. So.
Mr. Chair, to that question, which is a great question, because I haven't heard that really many years here. What is the deal with, I've never seen a transfer from a department and from UPG money to found a scholarship. I'm not against it. I'm just not understanding mechanistically how that works on the Catherine Hullfish professorship in OBGYN, that the department transferred money from UPG to create this scholarship.
I'm not aware, Craig, can you jump in?
Yeah, that's not happened multiple times over the past few years. A department raises money, but then decides the direction that they want to send that money is to create an endowment for future research. And so that's happened in radiology, pathology. I can't remember the list of the departments, but it's something that's been quite frequent, I think, over the past
So
few
it's
years.
raised specifically for that, for a purpose of scholarship. It's not coming from physician earned income.
Well, it's coming from reserves from the departments, and the departments have multiple sources of income: grant funding, physician revenue, and that. So whatever the sources of income to the departments are, then have created those reserves. But then the departments or the department chairs have made a decision that they want to perpetuate, some clinical mission, or they want to perpetuate research or some sort of a teaching mission. So then they'll take some money from their reserves and create this endowment that then can fund whatever that initiative is going forward. And it doesn't have to be research. It could be teaching. It could be a clinical program or whatever. But that's the reason they want to create this endowment, is to create some level of endurance to the program that they're interested in.
And that's at the discretion of the individual department chair to do that? Is there a process?
Yeah, it has to be approved by the UPG board. So all of that's taken to the UPG board before that decision is made. It's usually initiated by a department chair in discussion with their department. So that's how it's initiated. But then there's a good discussion at the UPG board before that decision is made.
Thank you.
Any further questions or discussion? I think we've had a motion and a second. You ready to vote? All those in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Any opposed? Very good.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The final action items are for the creation of 2 new Bachelor of Science in Education degree programs in the School of Education and Human Development. The first is the Bachelor of Science in Education in English as a second language, and the second is the Bachelor of Science in Education in Secondary Education. These have gone through all of the internal university review processes successfully, and the final stage is to seek board approval. Both programs will help to meet needs for qualified teachers across the Commonwealth. Mr. Chair, I recommend the board's approval of these resolutions.
Are there questions for the provost? Question?
Same question, with respect to these, just not knowing, sort of what the impetus is for creating a new degree. Is it based on established need, or is it anticipating future need? And is there anything the board is sort of weighing these against when we're supposed to be creating new degree programs?
So it's good. Yeah, it's a great question. It's going to be weighed both, I think, in terms of student interest, and then particularly, I would say, within the School of Education, because we are training teachers to take up the vocation of teaching in one field or another, to really get a sense that there's a need for these outside the university. And I think these two, English as a second language and post-secondary, I mean, the sad fact is we just don't have enough teachers. So these are two areas. Let me not question any that are hypothetical, but I think clearly English as a second language and post-secondary are high need areas. I do think it makes sense for the board to weigh these, to kind of have a sense, and potentially sort of to ask, if there's something that seems a little bit more understanding of, is there a niche interest beyond sort of a small degree of interest in this. It's the responsibility of the deans in the management of the budget, which then reports up to me to approve and oversee, which then gets folded up into the overall budget that you approve, to make sure that the deans are managing the budgets and the allocation of sort of faculty resources to ensure that they can support and staff these. These are two, frankly, that they're so squarely in the center of the School of Education's mission that I feel very solid about.
Are there budget implications for these two new programs?
No. It's budget within the portfolio of the school's budget.
Any further questions? All right, I think we've had a motion. Have we had a motion and a second for this? I've lost track here.
Motion.
Motion, second.
I'll second.
Second. Ready to vote? All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? No. Mr. Provost.
Thank you. So I have a few comments before we turn to our speakers. Just to touch on a couple of highlights for the fall. It has been a busy fall, so I'll just move quickly through a couple of areas. First, as you know, I always want to provide some research highlights. As I've mentioned previously, our sponsored research awards have continued to reach record numbers in recent years. We are not satisfied with where we are, but we're pleased by the progress that we have seen. 2 years ago, we broke the $500 million threshold for federally sponsored research, and pleased to report that in the past year, we hit almost 550 million, 549 million. So it's not where we want to be, but again, it's a significant sign of growth. In addition to measuring and tracking externally sponsored research, we, like all institutions, look at total research expenditures. So that's federally sponsored research, corporate sponsored research, foundation sponsored research, institutional research. And Mr. Rector, you challenged us the last time around when we talk about bringing new research goals, which we are working on to the university, a high aspirational challenge to join the $1 billion club. When you look at the $1 billion club, this is the criteria that people look at, total research expenditures. Just this past week, we got an update on those amounts. And so our most recent total is $714 million, which is an increase of $52 million over the previous year. So again, we're not where we want to be, but we're seeing continuous signs of progress, and I'm very pleased by that, and want to thank our Vice President for Research, who I saw come in, Lori Shannon, for her leadership. One of the ways that we've been advancing research are to make significant tactical and strategic investments. Many of those are in technology. I'll just mention a few. Not all of our research, but increasing amounts of our research is dependent on high-performance computing, high-performance research computing, and this has been one of our highest priorities for investment. We have recently brought online a new high-performance computing core that will cover the needs, the basic fundamental research needs of 80 to 90% of our faculty. This is a common resource. It's going to mean the faculty can spend less on their individual grants, on sort of their own research computing. It's a much more efficient and effective use of investing in research through research computing. We have also brought online a new data analytics center for our faculty who are doing a lot of AI, machine learning intensive research. There are a group of researchers who work with them as they design their research projects for AI intense, data intense projects, and a new data technology core for faculty who are actually working to implement research in materials, sometimes sort of movables, portables, where you need secure information to enable faculty to do so. A couple of highlights in terms of some big recent research hits. 3 researchers in the School of Medicine were recently awarded 2 NIH grants totaling $7.4 million to use a new cutting-edge imaging technique to evaluate lung transplant rejection and abnormalities in the lungs of electronic cigarette users. thanks to Dr. Kent and his colleagues at UVA Health. At our transplant center, our colleagues there use this technology to reduce organ rejection, improve outcomes, and reduce the wait times for the nearly 4,000 patients around the country who are waiting lung transplants. We also recently became an anchor partner of a $20 million National Science Foundation Simon-supported AI Institute in Cosmic Origins. The study of astronomy is increasingly data-intensive with truly massive data sets. We'll be an anchor institution for an AI institute to process that data, which will advance not only astronomical discovery, but is explicitly designed to think about cross-domain processing of vast data sets. So we're pleased to see that. A couple of other updates on our AI front. We talked at the last board meeting about our efforts in advancing AI pedagogy, working with our students and faculty in using AI in the classroom. We are also focused on advancing AI-related research among our faculties, members of the faculty, and some three things I want to briefly touch on. We're about to launch a new program, an AI Catalyst Fellows program for faculty at the university who want to advance their work in AI technologically available research, or to move their research into AI areas. And so we'll be supporting cohorts, about 15 faculty members a year, to advance that work, bringing them together, helping them think about how to do that work. I want to thank Megan Barnett in the back of the room, who's been a leader in that process. We also know that much of the expertise in AI is outside of the university, in government and in industry in particular. And we're creating a program where we'll bring in AI fellows from government and industry to join us for periods of time to work with faculty and students to build our networks beyond the university and to bring that expertise. And then the final thing that I would mention, again, thanks to Megan and many other colleagues around the room, we have begun a conversation with Virginia Tech and with the Commonwealth to propose a Commonwealth-wide artificial intelligence research institute that would be focused on the responsible use of artificial intelligence in a series of domain areas. Responsible use of AI in medicine, responsible use of AI in education, responsible use of AI in business, building on the gift from the Cross family to the Darden School, and thinking about the implications of democracy for artificial intelligence. This would be a research institute. It would also focus on workforce development, ongoing adult education, and would seek to establish the university as a trusted counselor to partners in government as they try to think about the ethical use of AI. So great beginning of a conversation with Virginia Tech. We want this to benefit the Commonwealth as a whole, bring in other universities, and I look forward to reporting back on that. I'm going to close with two other items. A quick update on undergraduate admission. We have recently received nearly 47,000 applicants from prospective students through the early action and early decision cycles alone. 42,000 of those were for early action. Those numbers yet again represent a record number of applicants to the university, an 11% increase over the previous year. I wanted also to return to the board. The question that I know has been important to members of the board and the university as a whole is what our posture will be towards standardized tests moving forward. We made a commitment previously that this would be a cycle in which we would continue to be test optional, and now we need to study whether we should return. And I want to thank a number of colleagues who are in the room. Ben Castleman. Ben, can you raise your hand? Ben is a professor in public policy and education. Sarah Turner, former chair of the economics department. Two of our leading faculty members in higher ed economics. We're working with Steve Farmer. Steve, can you raise your hand? And other members of a faculty task force studying this question. And what they're trying to understand is to have a data-driven analysis of the predictive value of standardized tests, GPA, course selection, which courses students take, their involvement in extracurricular activities, how we think about those as predictive factors, both for the excellence of the students who we admit and the success that we want them to achieve in the classroom, in graduation, in co-curricular activities, in professional life. And so we're going to be data-driven by this. Ben, deep thank you again to you and Sarah for leading this work. They're nearing completion of this work. Once that work is complete, I will come back to this committee to share the results of that, and we'll then be able to discuss what we think the right thing is for the university and for our students moving forward.
Can I ask a question about that?
Yes.
Is that based off of internal UVA data?
Yes, it's a great question. It's primarily internally data.
And then will you be incorporating basically a meta-analysis? And by that I mean, this has been done in other institutions and some pretty interesting patterns have emerged in that assessment. So will you be cross-referencing what the UVA data says about UVA compared to what others have discovered, because a sample size of 1 million is better than a sample size of, 20,000?
It's a great observation, and we will certainly be doing that.
And the other thing that we're doing, and again, we'll have a chance for a full discussion on this. I just wanted to let you know that we are taking this up and quite seriously, we'll bring it back. And we are looking what our peer institutions are doing on this question as well. And so we'll be able to talk about the decisions that our peers have made. So thanks for that, and we'll have an opportunity for a full discussion. Finally, before a word of congratulations to a student and then turning to students, a few updates on the work that we're doing in response to the recommendations of the Task Force on Religious Diversity and Belonging, which we've committed to return to you. So we've taken a number of steps over the course of the fall. Our Office of Equal Opportunity and Civil Rights has significantly expanded resources and communications related to religious accommodations, particularly really important, the rights of students to seek religious accommodations, including publicizing what's available, sharing that news with all faculty and students, having a new website with frequently asked questions. The Virginia Interfaith Coalition, which is a student-led organization bringing students from a variety of faith groups together to think about, spend time with, get to know one another, and sort of live their lives together, had sort of fallen quiet over recent years. It has now reorganized itself. It has appointed officers. The president and I recently met with a group of students who are leading this organization. They're a really impressive group. They're being supported by Student Affairs, and thanks to Kenyon Bonner and his colleague, Student Affairs is going to be appointing a staff member to lead interfaith supported work at the university. We have also been in deep conversation with Hillel International and are applying to enter into a program that they're running called the Campus Climate Initiative, which is an intense year-long process of deep engagement between Hillel International and universities, university leaders, administrators, students, to think about what is the nature of anti-Semitism across society at universities. How do you strengthen community? How do you strengthen a sense of belonging? And I'm grateful for that. And Dan, indirectly to you, for deep thanks for all that you have done to support the Brody Jewish Center and our colleagues at Hillel. Assuming that we become part of that cohort we have requested to, we believe that we likely will be, that will kick off with a meeting with Hillel International, a number of university senior administrators and colleagues from around the nation in Washington, D.C. in February, and will commit to a full year-long process. Parallel to that, we are also seeking to do similar work with our Muslim students, a deeply similar kind of set of commitments to them, a faculty senior administrative engagement. And again, thanks to Kenyon Bonner and a number of other colleagues, we have had some good conversations with University of Virginia alumni who are interested in potentially sponsoring a Muslim chaplain for Muslim students. There is no senior religious leader for them. So that work, I'm very pleased and grateful for what's been happening.
Mr. Chairman?
Yep.
Could I ask the provost a question also?
Yep.
Along those lines, there was an article published December 5th in the National Review about a student of ours who was wearing a particular hat.
Yep.
Is this the appropriate time for you to give us a comment on what action has been taken on that and why that occurred?
The appropriate time, and thank you, Mr. Long. I appreciate that, and I've discussed that with Mr. Eiler, and I believe that Mr. Eiler and I would have an opportunity to do that later in the meeting in a subsequent session.
Thank you.
So thank you, and we'll be able to do so.
Thank you.
At that point, yes, thank you, Mr. Long. So to get back on time, the last thing I want to do is to congratulate Sam Howe, I need to make sure that I've got it right. Yes, Sam Crow, the University of Virginia's 57th Rhodes Scholar, who was announced a couple weeks ago. I think, as people know, we are the nation's leading institution to be lucky enough to have students who win Rhodes Scholarships. Just a word about Sam, a fourth-year student from Chesapeake, Virginia, studying history and astronomy physics in a distinguished majors program, who's going to pursue a doctorate in astrophysics. He's a Goldwater Scholar. He has led his own pioneering research. He's backpacked across 21 countries on 5 continents. He is a remarkable, remarkable young man. So Sam, if you're not watching, have someone send this to you. And if I could just have a round of applause. Right, Mr. Chair, that concludes my remarks. May I introduce our guests?
Yes, please.
All right, thank you. Laura and Harper, will you come on up to the table? So as our chair has already indicated, we're going to hear from the chairs of Honor and the Judiciary Committee. And let me just briefly introduce them. Laura Howard. Laura, would you raise your hand so we know who you are? Laura is a fourth-year student from Far Hills, New Jersey. She's double majoring, she's impressive herself, in political science and social thought and foreign affairs, and she is the chair of the Honor Committee. Harper Jones is a fourth-year student from Greenwich, Connecticut. She's also majoring in political and social thought, also with a second major in history and a minor in government, and Harper's the chair of UJC. And over to you. We're looking forward to hearing from you, and thank you for your service to your fellow students at the university.
Oh, okay. Now is it on?
You're good.
Okay, thank you. Good afternoon. My name is Laura Howard, and I'm a fourth-year double majoring in political and social thought and foreign affairs. I have the pleasure of serving as the chair of the Honor Committee this year, and I'm grateful for the opportunity to speak with you all today. For 181 years, the honor system had a single sanction. For the first 180 years, it was expulsion, and the last was a 2-semester suspension. In March 2023, students across the university voted in our multi-sanctioned constitution, with over 88% of the student body voting in favor. The committee spent most of the 2023 to 2024 term debating the nuances of our new system, creating procedures, and writing series after series of bylaws. The overwhelming support of our peers for a living honor, one that reflected the current interests and needs of students, and their trust in us to enact this shared vision of proportionality and restoration, propelled us through this work. Multi-sanction has played an essential role in reinvigorating the student body's passion for our system. In order to discuss the results of its first year, I think it will be helpful to review the 2 outcomes that people had hoped would come as a result of this change. First, they hoped that the student body's investment in the honor system would increase, since sanctioning would be perceived as more fair, and that accordingly, issues with jury nullification would disappear. Second, they anticipated that it would increase reporting, since members of the faculty would be more likely to report alleged honor offenses if a finding of guilt would not automatically trigger expulsion. On the first count, we have seen tremendous success. Students have grown more passionate about and invested in honor. The previous chair, Hamza Aziz, introduced Honor Week, a reimagination of our traditional popular assembly. What was once a handful of smaller scale events grew into a week of outreach, including a special honor run with Jim and a session with the Koch Institute of Democracy about artificial intelligence. We are currently planning our second Honor Week now and look forward to continuing to enhance our engagement. Beyond this improved attention, we have shifted away from the jury nullification we faced under single sanction. In the past, randomly selected students would admit that they thought that the student at our hearings was guilty, but did not want to expel them, so they found them not guilty. This is no longer the case, as we have seen numerous guilty verdicts so far, which shows that when buy-in to multi-sanction is really tested and the panel must determine guilt, students believe in the Honor Committee's role of delivering accountability for these offenses. Last year, approximately 80% of our cases resulted in a finding of guilt in sanctioning, which is substantially higher than under single sanction, even double or triple the rates of several years. While we are grateful that the student body is more invested in honor, I'd like to zero in on what the shift to multi-sanction has meant to the students who have gone through our case process. In one of our sanctions, the Restorative Ethics Seminar, students are asked to honestly reflect upon their experience in the honor process in an essay we call the XYZ case study. All of these essays are posted on our website, and I've pulled 2 recent excerpts, which are on the slide, for your consideration. You'll notice that the students reflected on the personal growth they experienced as a result of their participation in the honor process, and their gratitude for being given a second chance in our community of trust. The second student's reflection on the opportunity to restore their relationships with their professors and rebuild the bonds they had broken reflects how the multi-sanction system teaches students how to take accountability for their actions, engage in challenging conversations with people they've disappointed, and commit themselves to improve behavior in the future. In fact, I'll share that we've had students who took the informed retraction, which means that they admitted guilt immediately after being reported and made amends with the affected parties, apply to join our support officer pool, one of whom was selected. The students shared that their experience going through the case process and learning about our community of trust made them very passionate about upholding it. Their experience is a testament to the power and value of multi-sanction, that a student who was on the receiving end of the honor case process came to understand and believe in the honor system so profoundly that they chose to become a part of it. Currently, the committee is shifting its attention to the second prong of the hopes for the multi-sanction system, an increase in reporting. In the first year of our new system, we had 74 reports, which is a substantial increase from the 22 reports in 2022 to 2023 and 14 reports in 2021 to 2022. Now, it is important to note that the final 2 years under single sanction occurred in the wake of the COVID-19 pandemic, so those numbers should be considered in their larger context. Of the 74 reports last term, 81% were reported by members of the faculty. In addition, the panel for sanction levied a variety of sanctions, including mentorship with professors, several expulsions and abeyance, and multiple suspensions. Faculty also retain the sole power to lower students' grades and fail them in classes. We have had 35 reports since April 1st this year, which is on track to be a similarly high rate to last year. This value demonstrates that multi-sanction has sparked a resurgence of faculty using honor as a resource. However, I believe that there is still work to be done to expand our faculty engagement. At present, honor committee representatives attend the new faculty lunch in the fall, and the chair attends President Ryan's reception at Carr's Hill. Our faculty advisory subcommittee plans events throughout the year for faculty, and the chair writes a semesterly email to all faculty. Based on the conversations I have had with faculty about honor, I have identified 3 themes. They're more likely to report a case to us if they're reminded of honor, since we have many new faculty who are not as steeped in the system. They'd like more transparency, and they think the honor process is too slow. To address the first, I'm working with Student Affairs to develop a monthly newsletter to provide updates about the committee and remind faculty that we are a resource. Representatives are also taking what we call a boots on the ground approach. They are scheduling meetings with faculty to share their passion for our system and establish a friendly relationship with them. Second, I created the Data and Research Subcommittee this year to conduct research, update our transparency portal, and provide public reports. Third, the committee is currently exploring broad reforms to improve efficiency. Last year, changes to the informed retraction drastically cut case processing for some cases. We believe that a multifaceted appeal to students and faculty will amplify these efforts. We would appreciate the board's assistance in developing additional opportunities for the honor committee to welcome new students and faculty into our community of trust, and encouraging faculty reports of alleged honor offenses more broadly. We are committed to continuing to explore the potential of multi-sanction and expanding community engagement with our university's most cherished tradition. The community of trust and the student-run honor system are the primary factors that have defined and distinguished UVA and its students for the past 182 years. Honor is a cornerstone of this university, and the committee and the student body are dedicated to sustaining its legacy for generations to come. We welcome your input, ideas, and questions, and are deeply grateful for your trust and investment in our proceedings. Thank you.
Thank you, Laura.
And now I have the pleasure of introducing Harper Jones, the chair of the University Judiciary Committee.
Hello, everyone. Thank you, Provost Baucom and Laura, for the kind introductions, and thank you to the entire Board of Visitors for having me this afternoon. As Provost Baucom mentioned, my name is Harper Jones, and I'm a 4th-year student in the College of Arts and Sciences. I also have the distinct honor of serving as the chair of the University Judiciary Committee for the 2024-2025 term. It's been several years since the University Judiciary Committee has had the opportunity to present to the board, so I'd like to begin my remarks today with some background. The University Judiciary Committee, or UJC, is the independent student-run body tasked by this Board of Visitors to investigate and adjudicate alleged violations of the university's 12 standards of conduct. The standards of conduct cover everything from trespassing to physical assault to violations of university policy and more, and they guide the UJC's mission in promoting freedom, safety, and respect in the university community and beyond. In adjudicating violations of the standards of conduct, the UJC has the authority to sanction anything up to and including the expulsion of a student or the termination of a student organization. Yet, the UJC operates on an educational mandate rather than a purely punitive one. Expulsion and termination are rare. Instead, the UJC operates on a true multi-sanction system, which gives each trial panel complete discretion to craft sanctions which are rehabilitative in nature and truly reflect the circumstances underlying any violation of the standards of conduct and the student or student organization behind those violations. The seeds for the UJC were first planted in 1948, when Student Council was granted the power to judge student misconduct by then University President Colgate Darden. 6 years later, in the wake of a violent incident on the East Lawn, students advocated for an independent judiciary committee. Through a university-wide referendum, the modern Judiciary Committee was created in 1955. In its early years, cases before the committee were judged based on whether a student's conduct was, quote, unbecoming of a gentleman, end quote. In 1950, however, the first iteration of the standards of conduct were established, dictating more specific metrics for student behavior. In the years that followed, the University Judiciary Committee continued to adapt to changing circumstances. The passage of federal legislation meant the adoption of confidentiality for all cases. The turn of the century produced a revision of the standards of conduct to their current iteration, and the internet age prompted a shift to an online case processing system. In recent years, the committee has seen increased buy-in from students, administrators, faculty, and staff. Our caseload has risen to its highest level since the COVID-19 pandemic and has well surpassed pre-COVID-19 levels. At this time last year, the committee had adjudicated 12 cases. Across the entire 2023-2024 term, the committee adjudicated 23 total cases. Since April 1st, 2024, when my term as chair began, we have adjudicated 40 cases. Amidst a rapidly expanding docket, the committee has also witnessed an increase in the severity of cases brought before us. More than ever before, complaints filed with the UJC frequently invoke violations of standards of conduct 1, 2, 6, or 10. Cases involving physical assault, threats to health and safety, violations of university policy, and violations of local, state, and federal law. Our sanctions have reflected the increased severity of these cases as well. In the spring of 2024, the committee issued its first expulsion of a student in over 20 years. Additionally, over the past 4 semesters, the committee has issued 5 suspensions, 10 suspensions in abeyance, and 3 expulsions in abeyance. Despite significant increases in caseload and a complex series of cases, the UJC has been able to drastically reduce our average case processing time. In the spring of 2024, the committee averaged 27.17 days from the day a complaint was filed to the day a case was adjudicated. Our incredible support officers and representatives deserve all the credit for this success. As we process an increased number of cases that involve more complex and serious behaviors, we continue to be guided by our core mission of promoting freedom, safety, and respect, protecting the rights of students, ensuring due process for all parties involved in a UJC case, guaranteeing impartiality, and seeking a restorative approach to violations of the standard of conduct remain paramount to this work. While perhaps best known for our regular case processing, the UJC also continues to support the university community through various outreach and engagement efforts. This past spring, as part of our own annual Judiciary Week, we partnered with the President's Office for our Run with Jim, put on a public mock trial to give students and community members greater insight into our trial process. and hosted a free speech panel with university experts to discuss the importance of speech in the university context. This fall, we partnered with Who's Vote to encourage election awareness and facilitate voter registration on grounds. We also continue to support student organizations and activities through our robust co-sponsorship program. In everything we do, the UJC remains committed to the tenets of student self-governance that has marked the UVA student experience since this university's founding in 1819. We are grounded firmly in the belief that everyone deserves an opportunity to take responsibility for their actions, learn from their mistakes, and restore their relationship with the community. I will be the first to acknowledge that this work is not easy. Members of the UJC work long hours while balancing their own academic commitments to ensure that our process is fair, transparent, and proportionate to the alleged violations of the standards of conduct before us. But we continue to do this work because we believe in this system. We do this work because it constitutes student self-governance in its purest form. We do this work because our process provides students with the opportunity to hold themselves, their communities, and their institutions accountable. We do this work because it provides a means through which students have an immediate and significant say in setting the standards of this university community. We do this work because we believe it is best done by those who intimately understand the circumstances of their peers and the realities of day-to-day student life. And we do this work, despite its challenges, because it is work worth doing. Having been a part of the University Judiciary Committee since I stepped foot on grounds nearly 4 years ago, I can wholeheartedly say that my involvement in this organization has been a defining factor of my time at this university. I would not be the student, leader, and person that I am today without UVA's system of student self-governance and without the UJC. As a committee, our hope is that generations of future students will continue to say the same. Thank you for your time, and I look forward to the opportunity to answer some of your questions.
So Laura and Harper, thank you so much for, again, being shining examples of the high quality and high character students that this university produces. They are now prepared to take your questions. Mr. President.
Thanks you both for the presentations and for your work, and it's good to see you both. I'm just curious about the efforts to streamline at least the amount of time that faculty have to be involved in the honor system, because I mean, this is years ago, but when I was on the law faculty, there was a lot of reluctance just because faculty thought life is too short to spend hours and hours and hours in the as part of the honor process. So I'd love to hear a little bit more about that, and then maybe even a communication effort so faculty know what to expect, because some of it I think is unknown. You're told you should report an offense, but I don't know that many of them would be able to tell you if you asked, what is the time commitment going to look like from that point on?
Certainly, yes. I'm happy to answer that. So for anyone who reports an honor offense, the requirements are actually pretty minimal. They have to fill out a report intake form and attach any evidence that's prompting them to file the report. Then they should have to sit for their reporter interview where they describe the matter in question and why they believe that an honor offense has occurred. And then they must attend the hearing because the student in our Constitution has the right to confront the person who has accused them. In terms of how we were trying to trim down some of that case processing time, we spend most of our time in our investigations, which are incredibly thorough and detailed. And we've had several procedures in our investigations since our single sanction days. When we created our multi-sanction bylaws, it mostly involved thinking, how are we going to sanction? How are we going to set up the panel for sanction? And that's what last year's committee was dedicated to. But my committee this year has been dedicated to sort of interrogating the procedures we had before and figuring out ways that we can improve efficiency without also conducting our investigations too rashly and cutting corners in a way that sacrifices rights. So we would be looking at ways to streamline the investigation and the hearing to have some parts happen concurrently instead of having back-to-back waiting periods, if that's helpful. And in terms of communication, I would, during our honor week, we do what we call a faculty walkthrough of our case process, where we'd say, you filed your report, you're going to physically walk with us to a sign that describes what your reporter interview is going to look like and how long it'll take.
Thanks.
You had cases pick up of teachers reporting students submitting a paper written by ChatGPT, and how hard is that to catch? And I mean, what are you seeing in that regard?
Yeah, so looking at cases of the use of artificial intelligence was a challenge for the committee. We do not use any artificial intelligence detectors or any software that claims to be able to detect generative AI because we found that it has not been that effective and that there are multiple bugs and problems in that software. So instead, if there's a question of a student putting an essay prompt into ChatGPT that was ultra specific, we'll have our student investigators put those essay prompts into ChatGPT themselves multiple times, and then they'll compare that to the student's response and look for similarities and say, are these just coincidences that these two things are similar, or is it really unlikely that the student would have structured their essay in the exact same way that ChatGPT did 15 times? That's how we've chosen.
I'm just trying to picture my mind's eye. I know we're a student self-governance school and with honor and judish, but I also know administration gets involved in discipline in different areas, and we've got the Just Report It system that Steve was referencing earlier about something that happened, and other things like that. We've got the so can you guys help clarify for me sort of where the student discipline that comes from administration interacts with judish, and what's the communication like, and how does that flow? I mean, I should know it, but I don't think I really have a good grasp of it.
I'm gonna ask Mr. Bonner if he can come up and participate in that discussion as well, since it's kind of focused on all three, but yeah.
Start. I can start. It's a complicated process, so sometimes I have to remind myself too, but thank you for the question. We receive reports in a number of ways. The university receives reports in a number of ways. So the Just Report It system, I'd say, is the primary way the university receives conduct reports, although I don't know the percentages off the top of my head. The Judiciary Committee also has our own internal reporting system, and so it's possible that we have complaints filed with us independent of the administration. I'd say primarily, though, last semester, spring 2024, 83% of our cases were filed by members of VPSA, so Vice President of Student Affairs. That includes members of the newly formed PACE team, but also other deans, whether they were deans on call or other members of the community that referred cases to Student Affairs. In terms of the case filing process, once a case is filed through Just Report It, it'll go through sort of an initial triage on the Student Affairs side, in which Student Affairs will review the case. Often a member of the PACE team, which stands for Policy, Accountability, and Critical Events, will review the complaint and oftentimes reach out to the student for an initial meeting, although that initial meeting doesn't always happen depending on the case.
The university would?
It's the university, Student Affairs.
Where to send it, okay.
And after that initial meeting, Student Affairs typically makes a determination as to what is appropriate for that case. So certain cases the committee doesn't hear, cases involving Title IX proceedings in particular, and also cases with contributory health impairments, so any psychological disorder that might contribute to the conduct. The committee does not hear that because those are handled by trained psychologists. But Student Affairs will make a decision whether to refer the case to the committee or resolve the situation with a student. Typically, that only occurs if it's a low-level first-time offense and there's a referral to other available university resources. But a majority of the time, after that meeting, a complaint is filed with the UJC. We then review the complaint among our executive committee and vote on the complaint with a 4/5 majority of our voting members as to whether to accept that complaint. After accepting, it then goes through our regular case process.
So the administration doesn't get involved really with disciplining a student. It's, you guys look at it and help direct for it to go, but the sort of how you handle it and what you do with it and what happens to the student is them, you guys, right? And then I guess the last question, I promise. You mentioned that there's been a recent uptick in the, I think you used the word severity of the offenses in the last year or so. If you have some question about, hey, we got a dangerous situation here where there might be violence or, serious legal law breaking, is there a good way for you to communicate that to the right people so we can keep, you see what I'm saying? And just in general.
Yeah, so everything Harper said is 100% accurate. We do serve in many ways as a triage in determining where the appropriate places for it to go. And if it's a formal student conduct adjudication, it goes to UJC, and student self-governance takes that. If we believe that there is a sort of heightened risk, a security risk, threat, it goes to our threat assessment team.
Right.
And they will then review that and determine the appropriate actions. And some of the tools we have as administration is an interim suspension. And then that student typically is pending a UJC trial, yeah. But the threat assessment team and that process is one that we use when we have incidents where we are concerned about safety.
If it's a Title IX issue, then that would go to the EOCR office, because that's statutory that we have to do it that way. So if it's in that way, so.
Thanks.
So how do you determine what goes to PACE and where PACE implements the penalty versus what goes to Harper and Judish?
Yeah, so PACE actually doesn't have a technical sanctioning authority. That's entirely reserved to the Judiciary Committee. And so if a complaint comes through Just Report It, like I said, oftentimes that initial triage will occur through PACE. And that consists mostly of just an individual meeting with a student, discussing the conduct, discussing the report, and making a recommendation and communicating to the student what that sort of next step is, whether that's referral to Judish, or again, in lower level offenses, say a student is found with alcohol in their dorm, a first year student, which is a violation of university policy, that could result in a simple referral to Wahoo Well, which is one of the university's wellness programs. But in most cases, it would result in a referral to the committee from PACE, and then the member of PACE serves as the complainant on the case. So that's sort of how the university is involved in these cases. If they bring cases as complainants, they're allowed to testify in the proceeding, present evidence, bring witnesses. But other than that, the system is entirely independent and entirely run by the committee. If cases are filed independently of Just Report It and come through the committee, say a student files a complaint, a faculty member, a member of the Charlottesville community, we would liaison with them as the complainant, and sort of the university administration wouldn't necessarily be a part of that process.
Thank you.
I was wondering, terrific presentation, thank you. Going along with what President Ryan asked, do you keep statistics on where the majority of complaints come from in terms of the various schools? I'm asking that question because if it's proportional to the college is the largest, has the largest number of students, I'm thinking about targeting the faculty, so the faculty whom I represent can be better informed. Perhaps there's very specific faculty in specific schools where better and more efforts could be focused based on data you may have, versus there's not very many in some of the other schools. So a blanket approach to education makes sense, but targeted in the areas where the data show.
Yeah, so we unfortunately have not done an incredible job keeping the data that you've requested, but this year we are emphasizing a shift towards keeping better data, and that sounds like an incredible resource. I will share we tend to see most of our cases in the College of Arts and Sciences and the School of Engineering and Applied Sciences. We see cases across the university. In almost every school we've seen them this year, so this is not unique to the college and the School of Engineering and Applied Sciences. In terms of where it may make sense to focus efforts, a place where the committee is looking to improve its engagement is computer science, biology, chemistry, sort of the harder sciences departments are where we've been looking to sort of improve our relationships.
So we're going to take one more question here, and then 'cause I know we do have two other presentations to go.
Might be a complex question. A student gets caught with a fake ID. Is that an honor or a judish offense?
Typically Judish, because it often involves a relevant court proceeding. And so if a student presents, say, a fake ID to a university police officer, oftentimes that would result in filing charges, which is a violation of Standard of Conduct 10, violation of federal, state, and local laws, the possession of falsified identification. So typically that would be heard by the UJC, although the argument could be made that it constitutes lying, but typically we have siloed those types of cases within the UJC.
Fourth-year student who works as a bouncer at Trinity gets a first-year student with a fake ID, busts that student. Is that fourth-year bouncer compelled to report that to judiciary or honor?
There is no compulsion to report. Reporting for UJC is entirely optional, and they might have certain procedures and policies in place with their employer as to sort of busting that student with the fake ID. Obviously, through our educational efforts, we do try to encourage that type of reporting, but there's no compulsion in our system currently to report.
Good job, ladies.
Thank you.
Very good, yeah. All right, well, thank you so much for those presentations.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Just so you all know, it is the aspiration that we'll have student council and IFC, ISC subsequently in the year also come and talk to this board. The emphasis will be that we will hear from students at every meeting.
All right, Dean Bourne, can you and your team come to the table? So we're now turning to Dean Bourne. Is Phil here?
He is.
He is. There he is. Okay, there is Dean Bourne, who we saw earlier from data science. So Dean Bourne, Professor Brian Wright, also from data science, and data science major Tara Gose are going to be talking to us about the new, now fully fledged undergraduate program in data science. So over to you, Dean Bourne.
Thank you, Ian. Very quickly, I just have two very quick things to say. The important thing, of course, is the faculty and the students who are part of the program, so I'll let them speak. But I just want to say that now, through the undergraduate program, we have a complete complement of programs at the undergraduate and graduate level in the School of Data Science. And we're dedicated to the idea that as many students as possible that come to UVA can at least become data literate through the programs we offer. And if they choose to do something more specific, we have the programs available to them. So that's the first thing. The second thing is, and I mentioned this at the last board meeting I spoke at, but we've really, I think one of the things that we're most proud of is just what we've actually brought to UVA. We're clicking now towards 200 new hires at UVA in the world of data science. And one of those is the person sitting to my left, who has been really instrumental in developing the undergraduate minor and now the undergraduate major, Brian Wright. We're very lucky to get him from George Washington University. I knew him before that we actually, both of us came here, and I knew I wanted Brian to develop, when we decided we wanted to be more than a professional school, that for Brian to develop the program. So I'll let him tell you about it, and then the response to how the program's going, we'll hear about as well. Brian.
Great, thanks. I'll have to say, I mean, after hearing the students, I hope I live up to their standard for presentations. My gosh, I'm always amazed. Thanks for that generous introduction, Phil. And let me just jump. I guess this works, right? There we go. I'll jump right into it here. Okay, so the first thing I want to do is kind of lay out the foundations of kind of where we're at. You know, kind of broad picture. You know, I put generational opportunity up here, but it could very well be a multi-generational, maybe a once-in-a-lifetime kind of situation really that we're in here at UVA. And I've done this at a couple other schools, so I can speak from experience that, I mean, these things are just not present. Typically, when you think about building out, you know, kind of a new school and a new program, the main part of this is that we're kind of building out a new and applied STEM field. And that doesn't happen very often. When we think about applied STEM, we think about the last three, the technology, engineering, and mathematics. We're in the technology part of that. We're doing it in a brand new school. As we know at UVA, we don't do that very often either. A new undergraduate degree, and then we're doing it at one of the best universities in the country. So just think about this kind of punctuated equilibrium of opportunities. And then when Phil was gracious enough to talk to me about coming down here, it was all I could do to beg him to take me. So, I mean, this just doesn't happen that often. And then the other thing is we have really a unified vision from President Ryan to Ian to all the way down to myself, and especially in you know, the Vice Provost's Office for Academic Affairs, the support that we got from them to really lean forward and make an innovative program has really been just amazing. And again, based off my experience at other schools, that is uniquely rare. So when I moved forward, when we got here first in 2019, we said to ourselves, okay, given this unique opportunity, this once in a maybe generational kind of lifetime moment, we have to first define what data science is. And we were encumbered to do that because we were the first school of data science. And because we did that since 2019, which feels like decades ago, when we first put this together, we've really been a leader in the field, and this model is starting to be adapted by other schools and other programs. And that's something we should be very proud of. We tried to keep it simple, but comprehensive, and also wide in scope. And the reason for that is to try and attract as many people from as many diverse backgrounds as possible to be interested and want to pursue this new applied STEM field in data science. Because as the tagline says on the bottom, we know that these are going to be foundational skills for the way the economy is moving. I mean, that was 2019. I mean, imagine what that landscape looks like right now, right? So we did it in 4 very high-level areas. We did systems, analytics, design, value, and it all comes together in practice. And without going into painful detail about what each one of these is, systems is essentially cloud computing and programming. Analytics is machine learning, of which AI is a subset. Inference and statistics, design, and is about communicating data, and value is about the ethics and how it impacts when it comes in touch with humans. And so the core part of the bachelor's degree is 4 courses, or I'm sorry, it's 2 courses in each one of these 4 areas, all right? And then 3 additional math courses, and then a concentration. The minor is just 1 course in each one of these areas, which is the largest minor now at UVA. We're rapidly approaching 1,000 students that are enrolled in that degree. All right, so, but the idea again was to make it wide and applicable. And when we had the Bachelor of Data Science, we were hoping that we saw when the demographics of students that applied and that we entered, it would be a representative sample of the students that we have here at UVA. And we were able to do that, all right? So this first cohort we have, they've entered here in the fall, all right? So their first cohort here, one of the representatives right here, all right? They're gonna graduate in 2027, all right? There's 75 in that class, and we plan to grow up to 150 for now. And then it's highly representative of the larger demographics at UVA. And one of the big key measures of that, right, is this 57% female participation rate. All right, so at UVA, we know enrollment of female students here is 56. We nailed it right at 57. And that's exactly what we wanted, is essentially a microcosm of the larger demographic distributions here at UVA. Typically in applied STEM degrees, when we think about the cross-country, the participation rate for women is about 18%. So UVA does way better than that. All right, so there's already a very high standard, but we're able to meet and exceed that with this degree, which is a big deal for the Commonwealth, big deal for the nation, because it's a big important part of like making sure we have a healthy pipeline. So when we think about the curriculum, we really had kind of these 3 things in mind. We were thinking about interdisciplinary, we were thinking about making it relevant, and making it highly adaptable, right? And most of those ethos kind of manifest in this element of the concentrations, and then also the partnerships we've made with the other schools. So let me get into that a little bit here. It's a bit hard to see from here, but this is the concentration part of it, okay? So when the school, yeah, the glasses need to be bigger. So when the students get through the core, which is the first 2 years, so they come in after their first year, we actually don't have any directed programming in their 4th year. And we did that on purpose so they can take these skills and they can move out and they can enjoy the academic village according to these concentrations that we developed as they see fit. Because the truth of the matter is that data comes from somewhere, right? It always comes from somewhere. So we think these as foundational skills, and we created these pathways over about 2 to 3 years and these partnerships with the other schools so students could move out and experience exactly what it's like to apply these data science skills in these different areas. So here are the ones on the left as it's broken down. Those are the ones that we have already established or very nearly established, just some final approvals that need to be placed. And then the ones on the right are the ones that we're exploring to get approved next semester. Now the adaptable part about this is that these are fairly lightweight. They're 3 classes each. So as the market shifts, it's very possible that we would stand up additional concentrations depending on demand, both here locally and nationally. I mean, it'd be hard for me to imagine us not potentially having a concentration in linguistics and large language models probably in the next year, right? We already see that as a demand area. And then also because they are so lightweight, they're highly adaptable, right? And it again creates kind of this large tent and allows for lots of students that have varying interests to come in and explore those interests with purpose. Okay. The last part of this is that as we move forward, one of the things that we definitely want to try and do, and we're going to continue to be able to do this because of donations like the Scott Stevenson Fellowship that's going to support our ad-need students and then also support experiential programs. We want to continue to tighten our partnership with industry and government, right? And bring in as many internships, co-ops, these types of things. And a good example is that some of the partnerships that we've already kind of put into place with a local company here, Data Shapes AI, working on them with like a joint faculty position to bring them in and sponsored research. So that's the goals of the program moving forward. And some of the stuff we're going to be working on. And don't take it from me. I'll pass it over to Tara and she'll tell about her experiences.
Hello, everyone. My name is Tara Ghosh, and I'm a proud member of the inaugural cohort of the BSDS program here at UVA. When I first arrived at UVA, to be completely honest, I went through every major there was. At first, I was attracted to Batten and then McIntyre, and later considered math, all in the course of 1 week. And although I entered UVA undecided, something changed when I learned about the data science program. At first, I was pretty unsure if I should pursue data science since I had very strong interest in economics, but then I learned about the versatility of data science. It essentially plays a critical role in advancing nearly every academic discipline, whether it's business, environmental science, or healthcare. I am now double majoring in data science and economics because I'm passionate about using data-driven models and insights within the financial sector. By combining these fields, I can develop a strong analytical foundation while deepening my understanding of economic ideas and financial applications. What initially intrigued me about data science was its rapid growth, focus on innovation, and need for creativity. In my computational probability class, I am learning how to use the statistical programming language R to uncover the theories behind mathematical phenomenons. In my Systems 1 Intro to Computing class, I've gained hands-on experience with GitHub, Amazon Web Services, Linux, and many other technical skills I honestly did not even know existed until just a couple weeks ago. These experiences in the classroom have not only expanded my technical toolkit, but have also given me the confidence to explore them further through real-world application. The BSDS program has also connected me with amazing resources, such as our own Career Center and Academic Advisor, both of which I have used extensively to help through summer internship searches and to plan out the rest of my 4-year plan. Additionally, the Accelerate Workshop series has worked to cultivate community through bonding our cohort over group discussions, connecting us with resources from Wahoo Well, and expanding our knowledge on career readiness. Overall, the BSDS program has allowed me to explore academic interests I didn't even know I had up until pursuing data science. The community and sense of belonging present in the BSDS program has worked to grow my confidence and support both my academic and personal pursuits. Thank you again for your time, and I look forward to answering any questions you may have about the student experience at the BSDS program.
We have time for a few questions for Dean Bourne, Professor Ryder Tarr.
I noticed McIntyre's not there, and it seems like a big miss. They're not willing to work with you?
Oh, we have analytical accounting, so that's in McIntyre, and then they have a general business minor that we encourage our students to take. So
I didn't see it there in the list.
well, so the general business minor would be third degree, so we wouldn't list it as one of the concentrations. But we did work with them early on the analytical accounting concentration, which is kind of a pathway into the MAC program. So yeah, agreed.
And I just actually had a conversation with Nicole Jenkins earlier this week about some new things we might do. So it's a work in progress.
Other questions? I actually had one. So prior to the School of Data Science, housing all of this in one place, where would students have had to go to build data capabilities, functionality, this type of skill set?
So I think
it was Vegas.
Were you picking up on Tar's? Tar's focus there?
I mean, I think people think of the origins prior to data science to be either in statistics or in computational science, computer science, and possibly applied mathematics. I think what sets what we're doing apart is really leveraging the strengths of UVA that go beyond, which they have in those areas, but also goes beyond that. So it really is about the humanities and the social sciences as well. So we have a really holistic view of data science that, frankly, and I've reviewed other programs around the country, that really doesn't exist because most of them have their roots either in computer science or statistics, and they stick pretty closely to those roots. I think we've really created something that's, much more universal in what we're doing here.
Right. President?
So you mentioned you have 1,000 students who are minoring right now?
I don't think that we've hit the quadruple digit number of that, but it's in the 900s, yeah. So, and every year, because of the graduation and then the kind of enrollment rates start to really pick up and go into the spring.
Yeah.
It looks like we might eclipse that number this year, but.
So can you talk a little bit about how you're handling that large number of students? And is there a cap? Are you going to have to cap it at some point?
So we haven't capped it yet. So we still have about a 95% graduation through that, which is basically everybody that wants to graduate can. And when we first created that program, We did it inherently interdisciplinary. So while it's 5 classes, we only require 3. And then I shopped around the university for a year or more looking for classes that were good replacements for some of the courses we had, and we allowed those to count. So that's kind of antithetical to the way that a lot of other programs are built here, where it's like keep everything in-house. You know, there's certain incentives to do that, but that wasn't the ideal here. It was to rise all boats. And the reason I did that as part of it, and the reason we did it, right, as a school decided to do that, is that what the consequence of that is that other schools have started to develop more data science courses because they know we have a huge quorum of students that can take those. And that's just great for the university, and that's the way that we wanted to design and build the programs. And we've done the bachelor's program the same way. So the conversations I have with the other departments are highly productive. Like, this is great. I'll get your students into some of our courses, and then we can get them into our labs, working with our faculty members. They'll bring data science skills. They'll be conversational and neuroscience. It's a perfect combination for what they're looking for. So it's a nice ecosystem.
So is it word of mouth that people hear about the data science program here, or are you do outreach globally? How do you let people know that you have such a wonderful program?
Well, we have, I mean, because of the hard work that Phil and others have put in place before I got here, there's a large effort in the communications team that's able to go out. We have a great admissions team that goes out all over the state, talks about it. But as you know, the big thing with students is word of mouth. And so the minor helped out a lot. And we had a lot of positive word of mouth for that. But this is the first year of the first year of the bachelor's program. And so we're anticipating, you know, as we move forward, we've seen kind of the statistics that we track leading into the program increasing this year as compared to last year. And the other thing to keep in mind is we actually didn't even have it approved until October of fall of last year. And students had to apply in the spring. So it was a real short sprint. So now we should be, yeah.
One quick follow-up, how many students applied for the major?
Well, the students that were eligible to apply that made it through the prerequisites was about 300, and of those, about 175 applied for the major. Yeah.
And I'll take the approach of the last question. So is the School of Data Science like the comm school? You have to apply to it after you enroll, or are you able to apply as a high school senior?
It's the same. I think McIntyre's actually moving down to the 3-year model, so they're here for 1 year, then apply. So it is an upper school compared to
It's a 3-year upper.
3-year.
3-year upper school. Okay, very good.
Just sort of rolling all this together, I mean, I think that there's push and pull. We don't actually have to pull students very much. They're pushing to get into these programs. I mean, that they see the future. And we're just trying to meet the demand as best we can.
Amazing.
Thank you so much. Really, really appreciate it. And Tara, congratulations. We're lucky to have you. So thanks.
I think you have 2 job offers down here.
All right, Mike, I'm going to go ahead and bring you up, and I'm just going to do it very rapidly. Mike Lennox, our colleague from Darden, who's been leading our entrepreneurship enterprises, and who's going to give us a somewhat abbreviated update on the newly branded UVA Innovates, which is the branding around our university-wide entrepreneurship initiative. So, Mike, over to you.
I understand I have limited time here, so I will do this hopefully efficiently. First of all, I just want to say thank you again for the opportunity to address you all. I do have to say that I had a little bit of a flashback moment here with the students speaking. The very first time in my life I got to address the board was 1992 as chairman of the honor committee, back when I was a student. And I will say, as an alum, a faculty, a parent, it's really heartening to see how strong the community of trust and our student self-governance still is. All these years later, feeling a little bit old right now. In terms of our work here, I was able to address you all back in June, and I'm going to provide you just kind of a quick update on some things and maybe emphasize some things a little more than what I had in that first opportunity. So quickly, with terms of our progress since last summer, on September 10th, we launched UVA Innovates, which is our platform as part of our Pan-University Entrepreneurship Initiative. And as I mentioned in June, I like to use the term platform because this is not a roll-up strategy. We're not taking all the various efforts and putting together in one institute or one center or office. Really, the goals are coordination, communication, and amplification. So we've been building out now the structures to provide those types of roles. For example, we've created an advisory council made up of faculty from each of the different schools so we can have some of that coordination. We're working on the communication. And then we have these strategic initiatives, these signature initiatives. I will highlight that we are in the process of, in essence, hiring my replacement. We are looking for a full-time hire to run UVA Innovates. They will hold the Tadler Chair. Phil Bourne is leading that search, and we actually have finalists coming in the next couple weeks here. So we're really optimistic we'll have somebody in this role, in the full-time role, come July 1st. We had a wonderful event on October 2nd where we launched the Foundry, which is our student entrepreneurship center located on Elliowood Avenue. When I addressed you in June, we hadn't quite named it yet, so the Foundry is the name we eventually landed on there. It was part of a broader entrepreneurship week that we had with events going literally every day for 7 days. This was in partnership with the students, and I think it's just a great example of the entrepreneurial spirit of our students, that they're just incredible, and they were able to create and craft a whole suite of events that really just built that energy and excitement that we have in the community. We hired away an individual from the University of Miami, Brian Bressling, who is a UVA grad and was running something called Launchpad down there, which is one of the premier efforts around student entrepreneurship. So we were excited to get him. He is working away to kind of build out the programming and the like for the Foundry. But I want to take some time to talk about two other efforts of ours, focused more along faculty and graduate researcher innovation and venturing. The first is the Venture Hub, which is a partnership with the Licensing and Venture Group, and I'll talk more about that in a second. And the second is our Biotech Accelerator, which we've made some incredible progress on in the last 6 months. But just to set the table here, I want to just talk briefly about technology transfer. I imagine many of you are aware of this, but just to kind of level set, the Bayh-Dole Act of 1980 was instrumental in establishing both the right and the expectation that universities who receive federally funded research dollars, NIH, NSF, work to actively transfer those technologies and solutions into the private sector. I think it's fair to say for the first few decades after Bayh-Dole, our university and many others largely focused on traditional licensing. Faculty invent something in the lab, we license it to often a large corporation to take that technology. What we have seen, though, that there is an alternative path, and that is venturing, entrepreneurship here. And so in recognition of the growing number of opportunities to take technology out of the lab through the creation of ventures, either by the faculty themselves or with teams here, we rebranded what was called at the time the UVA Patent Foundation as the Licensing and Venture Group to really emphasize the venturing side. That was done in 2011. 2016, under President Ryan's leadership, we created the LVG Seed Fund, which is a seed fund really addressing a valley of death we see, kind of early stage ventures, pre-venture capital Series A, typically, though they do get involved in later stages. We're actually on the second seed fund at this point, and I'll talk a little bit about some of the stories there. Last but not least, what we are now standing up is what we call the Venture Hub. This is a partnership between UVA Innovates and the LVG Group. And this is really to serve as a concierge service, if you will, to faculty and graduate researchers, to be a front door for them as they think about the opportunities to create ventures out of the labs and out of the work that they're doing. So just to give you some quick examples here, Slate Bio was co-founded by Dr. Rahul Sharma, who is out of the medical school. I will not try to explain the exact science here. This is way beyond me, but it is involved around immunology and autoimmune diseases. They formed Slate Bio as a partnership with Andy Krause, who's one of our entrepreneurs in residence at LVG. And it's just a great example as you take the science and the researchers coming out of our faculty and our labs, pairing that with a serial entrepreneur to create a venture coming out of UVA. Australia is a really interesting company using satellite data and artificial intelligence to provide value-added services to various partners. They're working with the Nature Conservancy, the U.S. Department of Agriculture, with BEAR. And this was a venture founded by a UVA alum and serial entrepreneur in town, Brendan Richardson, and was a recipient of seed funding. And that seed funding, I believe it was originally $250,000, led to a second round of funding where UVA was a partner on a larger $2.7 million funding round. And again, it shows you how we can catalyze and get ventures out there and expanding so they begin to attract more traditional venture capital and the like. 510 Cardiac Devices from Dr. Scott Lim is dealing with cardiovascular diseases. It is a medical device company. Another company that has any number of patents that are coming out from the university here. We also invested in them through the seed fund, and I'm proud to say that that investment has already given a 1x return. Not what we're aiming for, but it's not done yet. So that we've already recouped our investment, and there's opportunities for greater returns to that. And then last but not least, Springbok Analytics is a company coming out of our biomedical engineering department. Sylvia Berkmar is one of the leads on that. That interesting company does data and analytics and does imaging, 3D imaging of muscular structures for a variety of different therapeutic purposes, including to help elite athletes improve their performance there. And yet again, this was another company that has quite a bit of University of Virginia intellectual property coming out of it. It also was a recipient of a Coulter grant, which is one of our translational research funds, which are created with the purpose of helping advance technologies so they can be taken out of the lab onto solutions. So quickly, just to remind you, what are some of the things we're doing to help amplify and accelerate these types of activities? The Venture Hub, as I mentioned, we've actually secured space on Preston Avenue. It's right above Cardinal Hall, if you're familiar with it. We've actually hired our inaugural director, Liza Bowers, who is a serial entrepreneur herself, former CEO. Very excited to have her on the team. She's going to bring a lot of energy in this effort. We're set to launch basically this month going into January. We're going to be expanding an entrepreneurs in residence program that exists. And we're also exploring grant programs and the like. So you will hear more about this coming very soon as we move into the new year. The second is our biotech accelerator. I'm proud to announce today that it will officially be called the Commonwealth Bio Accelerator. I think that's an important signal because the state and others are recognizing UVA and Charlottesville as a center place for the life sciences and biotech. With the investments that have been made in the Manning Institute, the history we have as a community in the life sciences, this is an effort that's going to amplify that to another degree, and it's incredibly exciting. Again, this is a partnership that has both private money from foundations, the university support and involvement, and also a grant from Go Virginia. So this has now been officially finalized, and you will be seeing this promoted maybe in the next couple days here in the news here. We are actually actively exploring follow-on funding, and there are opportunities with the state that you may see in the next few weeks that will allow us to actually even amplify this even further, expand, and move beyond our pilot. So this is a very exciting effort for the university and for the entrepreneurial community here. Last but not least, we are working to pursue something called the Solutions Labs. These are a suite of thematic labs focused on translation, taking ideas from research and turning them into solutions in the world, typically through venturing. We are considering corporate partners to help support this, a suite of activities that will again help amplify and create this energy to kind of push solutions into the world. And we're also looking into physical space to house the Solutions Lab concept. What I'll simply say is over the next 6 months or so, look for us to begin some pilots with this concept around specific thematic areas that match some of our core expertise and interests that we have at the university. So with that, let me pause and ask if you have any questions for me.
Questions, and again, I apologize for going over. The rector took some of my time with the break, so I'm gonna claim that back. Questions?
I just have one quick comment. Educate the researchers that this is available around the campus because they have to know this because they've got some great stuff, and if they know this, they're going to bring it to the market.
I totally agree, and this is why the Venture Hub is such a critical creation for us because it is going to allow us to kind of really signify, like, here it is, and here's where you need to come.
Michael, how big is the seed fund, and what was the follow-on money? For Estrella, where did that money come from? What pot?
I don't remember the exact venture capital firms that were also concurrent investors with them, but that was basically how this generally worked.
Virginia participated in the follow-on, but from what pot did Virginia's money come from?
So this is this $10 million seed fund that we have created here for investment in UVA ventures. The hope, and it looks like this is going to be accurate, that it would end up being an evergreen fund, that we'd basically at least get returns that allow us to continue the fund moving forward. And obviously with the expectation and hope that it would actually be a multiple of the original seed fund. But we're still in the early stages. Seed Fund 1 has been invested, and so we're waiting to basically harvest those investments, and Seed 2 is actively investing at this point.
Who makes the investments? Is there a committee? Is it you?
It is not me. It is not me. No, we have a committee. Bob Creedon, who works in the licensing venture group, runs the seed fund, and he has an investment committee made up of a pretty impressive group of investors and serial entrepreneurs as part of that.
Thanks.
Other questions? Well, thank you. Again, this presentation was a follow-on from our presentation in September, where we were talking about the Manning Institute, and there were some questions around how you commercialize the IP that was developed there. And so we'll continue this theme of, if there are follow-on items from prior meetings, we'll kind of old business, new business, take those up in the next meeting. So without any additional questions, I want to thank all the speakers. Thank you, Mr. Provost. We'll call this meeting adjourned at 5:06.
Great, thank you. Mr. Chair, that the reception will start at 6 o'clock tonight and dinner at 7, so thank you. That's on the agenda.
Going to dinner? Good. All right. So you're here for dinner?
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, I don't have a fund or anything like that, but, yeah, yeah.